The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, continuing our coverage of the 2018 fantasy football season. Today, some updated ranks, but mainly news, injuries, training camp battles, see what the beat reporters are saying, and how much we can really buy into those. You can check out my updated rankings in the description of this video or podcast. Plus, give the episode a like. And in the comment section, if you want to get on a draw for some DK bucks, give me your favorite running back sleeper heading into the season. That can't be like, Joe Mixon is a sleeper. Yeah, we know he's starting and getting all the touches. Not so much of a sleeper. List your favorite sleeper along with your DK handle in the comment section, and boom, you're in the running for some DK bucks in a draw, mind you. One name will be randomly picked, but hey, if you don't do it, you'll have no chance. If you do it, you have a slim chance. Slim chance, better than no chance, so please go do that. Jake Ciely from RotoExperts.com, Fantasy Sports Network, and Fantasy Radio is on the line with me today to go over this. Jake, how much do you love training camp reports?
As much as sticking my head in an oven, probably.
Well, there's some legitimate news, news we can get to, hard news. Although some of it might be fake news because coaches are Pete Carroll is saying some of it. So God knows if that's real news or not. But we do have, I do want to go through a section just called headlines later on. You tell me how interested or not interested you are in some of these just random training camp reports. But I guess the big one we need to start with, Doug Baldwin has a knee injury. He's going to miss, quote, a few weeks, which in my mind means 2 weeks, but apparently that could linger on. People are freaking out, can't draft Doug Baldwin now because fantasy football season has returned, and this is where people's minds go right away. Are you worried about this whatsoever in drafting Baldwin? Because as of right now, until I hear more news, I am not.
I think you have to be concerned, honestly. I am. This is one of those, it's funny you come up with the first piece of news that actually means something to me because, as you said, the big problem here is it going to be 3 weeks? Or are we going to talk about he's missing the entire preseason? And while it's Doug Baldwin, I don't care if he plays in the preseason because I just want Doug Baldwin to be healthy. The concern is I don't know how healthy he's going to be. If he's going to miss the entire preseason, he's going to be 30 this year with this kind of injury. Is this something that's going to, could it linger? I'm not sorry. I won't sing for you. Could it go into the season? Is it something that, maybe he misses the entire preseason? He's 90% week one being out there because they need him to win if they have any hope, because if Doug Baldwin's not out there, now it's Russell Wilson, Rashad Penny, and what else? Does he force it and possibly aggravate the injury? So I think you have to. Now, I'm not going crazy to all that being said. I'm not moving at him in my wide receiver 2 range, but where I had him in front of Demaryius Thomas and Allen Robinson and guys like that, I'll take those and I'll move him down probably half that tier.
Well, I was far more bullish on Doug Baldwin coming into the year than you were, so I'm going to stand my ground a little bit until I hear some more news that actually gets me a bit worried, because I think, this is Pete Carroll. Molten metal doesn't melt steel beams, Pete Carroll out here. So when we look at the rest of the depth chart in Seattle, you got Brandon Marshall, you got Tyler Lockett, Jaron Brown, some guy named Stringfellow. That's always nice. How much of this do you think, because I think they might actually keep him out to see if they can get an extra look at some of these other guys. If this leads to surgery, I'm screwed. I have him as my wide receiver number 7 in my rankings right now. I think he's firmly established as a number 1 if he's healthy. So let's say he comes back in 3 weeks and he plays the first team snaps in the 3rd preseason game. Would you have any concerns then?
No, I wouldn't. The unfortunate thing is I don't know if we're going to get an answer before week 3 of the preseason, where most people are drafting right after that or right before it. Ideally right after that, if you want to be one of those people who waits for the most possible news to get your strategy there. There's always a benefit to drafting early, but this is the downside of it. The downside of way early this year was Hunter Henry. So there's always downside to drafting early because of the injuries. So Doug Baldwin, if he plays week 3, even if he plays week 4 of the preseason, if he gets on the field before the season starts, I'll still have him. I do have him a little bit lower than you, but he is a wide receiver 1 for me, and I will have him there as long as I see him. It's just that uncertainty right now. It all sounds good. It all sounds like 2 to 3 weeks, but we still don't even have a definitive. That's a lot of assumptions by beat reporters. That's a lot of assumptions by ourselves. They're saying this doesn't sound like an injury that should hold him out much further than that. But nobody has a real tell. And as you said, when it comes to Pete Carroll and everything's super spectacular and positive and everything like that, for him to not say that he has much confidence kind of concerns me a little bit.
It is concerning, but again, it's still the beginning of August, not the end of August when this stuff really actually matters. Plus, not a great week one matchup for Doug Baldwin against Denver either. So maybe the move is to not draft Doug Baldwin, just trade for him if he has a bad week one or he doesn't play week one, something like that. I didn't even want to get into he's not playing week one. Few weeks is a few weeks. I'm taking that as 2. If he comes back, everything will be fine. I'll adjust then if he continues to miss time. But what about the other guys like I mentioned? Marshall, Lockett, Jaron Brown. If it's me, I think Jaron Brown might be the best option of all these guys.
Yeah, see, I like Brown. We've seen it before with the Cardinals and the deep playability, actually similar to John Brown and some of. See, look, he has upside. I think the other one to watch though is Tanner McAvoy. That's the other one. I know some people have said Amari Darboh. Here's a perfect example. I tweeted this out last night, Pat. I said this is peak preseason. There was a report saying Darboh could struggle to make the roster. 2 hours later, Darboh looks great in practice. Like, this is peak preseason. This is exactly why I get, as you said at the top, this is why the training camp news is so frustrating, because within 2 hours, you had a complete 180 on the reports of what Darboh's doing so far. I think McAvoy's in front of him. I think Jaron Brown, or is it Jaron? Is it Jaron or is it Jaron?
I always thought it was Jaron Brown, but I've always called him fake John Brown, so I really have no idea.
So let's just go with that. Let's just call him fake John Brown, and we'll try to figure out if it's Jaron or Jaron before we talk about him again. Either way, I do like that's the person I was looking at first. Tyler Lockett, we knew. Like somebody said that yesterday. What about Tyler Lockett? Well, he was already going to start alongside Doug Baldwin, and we've known Tyler Lockett before. So it's more of the Brown and McAvoys that I think have the opportunity to step up these next few weeks in the Baldwin absence.
All right, so let's stick with the Seahawks because it now seems like Chris Carson might be the starter in the Seahawks backfield, which I'm not going to lie to you, works wonders for my dynasty team and how I'm going to structure that, if that's actually true. But I don't know if this is real, if this is fake. Obviously, they spent the first round draft capital on Penny, although I don't think that taking a player towards the back end, especially a running back of the first round, is necessarily indicative of the draft capital that people are talking about. Like, yes, when the Giants take Saquon Barkley at number 2, they're going to play that guy. When the Patriots take Sony Michel towards the end and Penny goes to the Seahawks towards the end, the one thing that people have to remember that if you get taken in the first round, you're on a 5-year deal. And the farther you slip down the draft, the shorter that deal becomes. And what's realistically the shelf life of a running back? Like 5 years? You don't want to be paying running backs. So this could be a move for the future because you have him locked up for some time. I don't think that their hand is forced that they need to play him. But are you putting any stock that Chris Carson could be the guy playing in the backfield with Russell Wilson week 1 as opposed to Penny? And now Pete Carroll's talking up CJ Prosise too, so who knows?
Well, CJ Prosise we know CJ Prosise has the talent. He can't just stay on the field. Like, I went back to go to the draft profile of him. I called him 85% David Johnson because he's very similar skill set. He's just not as talented. So CJ Prosise will be involved if he's healthy, but that's one of those 4 to 6 touches per game, and it doesn't matter who the lead is.
Well, hold on. The talk with Prosise was that he would be involved in like third down situations and like 2-minute drill whenever they need to pass. Could he have like a Theo Riddick type role on this team? A team that probably has to pass a lot.
No, because I don't see him getting that high because Rashad Penny is great at pass catching and great at elusiveness and great at breakaway. As Rashad Penny to Chris Carson talent-wise is not a comparison. Here's the problem with Chris Carson. This is what everybody's doing. They're playing revisionist history in their head, and they're going back and, well, look at how terrible that they're saying this. This is what's going through the process. Look at how terrible the entire backfield was for the Seahawks last year. It was miserable. And then Chris Carson comes in and has one good game. Go look at his 4 games. He had one good game. Fantasy-wise, he had 2 double-digit performances because he had a touchdown in the other. But on performance-wise, he only had 1 good. And if you look at it, even before that last drive where they were grounding out the clock against the 49ers defense, which isn't that great, before that, you accumulate all his touches. He was averaging 3.3 yards per carry. Chris Carson is just not that good. He's a fine talent. He's a fine backup for teams. I think the Seahawks are trying to trade him, honestly, and by drumming up his value and talking about him, all this type of stuff, maybe they can go get some cheap wide receiver to help for their depth or offensive line help that they still need or something out there. I don't know, but I don't think Chris Carson is a serious threat to Rashad Penny at all. Rashad Penny doesn't. I know people are going to say the school too. You watch what he does. You don't run for over 2,000 yards. You don't produce like he does in the touchdown department. You're not as elusive as he is. And the biggest concern we had was pass blocking, which Schottenheimer has already come out and praised. So I have no concerns about Penny to Carson. All
right. I mean, what would you put at the chances that Penny is not starting week 1 and it is Chris Carson? Right now, I'd say probably Penny 60%, 40% for Carson, if these are the rumors.
I would say 80-20. I say 20% Carson starting, but even if it's starting, I don't think it's out producing, out touching.
Well, what does that do to the value of Penny right now? Because we're seeing a bit of a dip in an ADP because people are buying this Chris Carson stuff. Is this making him a more attractive option in drafts now?
It is. I was already taking him in the third round because I was, you know me, I normally go running back, wide receiver, or wide receiver, running back. And then in the third round, more often than not this year, I've been taking running backs. And in PPR, I have no problem with Penny. I just did a draft the other day in the fifth round, the middle of the fifth round, I got Rashad Penny. And I'm doing backflips with that. I am obviously going to die on the Rashad Penny hill this year, similar to this is going to be my next CJ Anderson possibly. But I really believe that Rashad Penny is not, and to go, people are going to drop the comparisons about the offensive line. The offensive line is better than people think. It's not top of the league, but they forget that that they traded for Dwayne Brown in the middle of last season. They signed DJ Fluker, who was abysmal in pass blocking, but he actually rated very highly. I think he was the 17th best Pro Football Focus guard in run blocking. So the team's better on the offensive line than they think.
All right, so I have Penny right now in tier 5 at running back. That's with like Joe Mixon, Jordan Howard, Marshawn Lynch, Rex Burkhead, Lamar Miller, and then Rashad Penny is the next, the bottom part of that tier. I'm going to leave him there right now, but I'm not going to lie to you. I'm starting to get worried a little bit.
I'm not at all. And to be honest with you, if I don't end up with Rashad Penny on one of my teams, and this does happen with Chris Carson starts, then to go back to your Doug Baldwin thing, I'm going to try and buy low because it will be week 3 or 4 before Penny takes over. This is not going to be Chris Carson's backfield.
Okay. Andrew Luck, he's throwing the ball. Apparently he went 19 of 22 against, I don't know, a scrimmage of some sort, including 12 of 14 in 11 on 11 situations. This is the only Andrew Luck news that we can really go. This is the first full padded practice that the Colts had on Sunday. What does this do to the value of A, Andrew Luck, and B, T.Y., who right now I have T.Y. in that third tier of receiver with Diggs and Evans and Adam Thielen. If Luck is healthy, how far up should I move T.Y. Hilton? Should he be a solid tier 2 receiver?
He definitely should be. We know what T.Y. Hilton is. T.Y. Hilton is a top 10 wide receiver if Andrew Luck is out there for 16 games. It's just a fact. If he's not out there, he's a wide receiver 3 with Jacoby Brissett. We have the proof. We have the numbers in front of us. I've been taking a lot of T.Y. Hilton so far because, as of today, I'm injury optimistic when it comes to Andrew Luck. I wasn't very optimistic last year, but he's throwing, as you said. He's actually out there playing. There's no concerns as of right now. The only reason I wouldn't push T.Y. Hilton up near that top tier, which he's come close to before, and say he has that kind of ceiling, especially when you look at this. I mean, let's talk about the target potential share here, Pat. And you look, what else is there? I'm a Deion Kane fan. I think Deion Kane can step up to be the number 2, and then they just drafted him. But it's Deion Kane, Chester Rogers, and Ryan Grant. You're telling me that T.Y. Hilton might not see like 30%, probably like 28% of the share this year. If you're getting that from Andrew Luck, and Andrew Luck bounces back to throw for even just a 4,400, 35 touchdown season, which is pretty mild for Andrew Luck numbers, T.Y. Hilton is going to have a vast majority of that and probably get near the top 5.
Yeah, so would you think that Kane can beat out Rodgers for the wide receiver too? Because I think that's I don't want to say a fantasy gold mine because I don't know if there's that much to go around in this offense, especially when you divvy up a lot between either the backfield or Ebron and Doyle, whatever it is. But whoever is the wide receiver 2 in the Colts offense should at least have viable fantasy games.
Yeah, so I'm pulling up right now. Deion Kane was in my tier 2. I had him alongside Anthony Miller, Michael Gallup, Deshaun Hamilton, and Dante Pettis. So I put that out there so people know that this is somebody who's a fan of Deion Kane. So if you want to kind of lessen my opinion because I'm a Deion Kane fan, I could understand that. But what I see in Deion Kane is a big guy who has ready and the skill set and the body to succeed in the NFL. The one concern I have is the route running ability, but that's something you can work on, especially if he does surpass Chester Rogers and Grant, which shouldn't be that tough to do given his natural ability and his and just the big body that he has. And if you're looking at that opportunity too, you want that big body in this offense because your offense is T.Y. Hilton, tight ends. You kind of need that outside multiple threat that you could have like their version of a Dez Bryant. And I think their skill set is just a bit different between Dez and Deion Kane. But I think that's a good opportunity. If you look at, if people would get excited about Des Bryant on this team, I think that's what you're looking for, hopefully, with Deion Kane.
All right, so with Andrew Luck, then, how far is he moving up the rankings? I initially had him at number 9 in my quarterback rankings, one spot behind Drew Brees, one spot ahead of Marcus Mariota. But if he's healthy, I mean, we don't know that for sure, but at least he's throwing. That's a gigantic step forward from this point last year.
Yeah.
I mean, would you take Jimmy Garoppolo or Andrew Luck? Because I think I would take Andrew Luck now.
Oh, Andrew Luck is nice. So I already had Andrew Luck at number 7.
All right,
I was taking.
Would you go Wentz or Luck then? Because both guys coming off injury.
So that's actually exactly good. Yeah, see, this is why you do this for a living, Pat, huh? I was exactly going to say that, the Wentz Luck situation. With Wentz, I got to say, as of today, I'm starting to lean towards Luck because Wentz is a knee issue, and I know they want him to be 100%, especially with the fact that they're similarly mobile quarterbacks, and they will run for 200 to maybe 300 yards and a couple touchdowns because they can get away from defenders that way. But with Wentz is how 100% is that knee? Is it 90%? And, is it going to get aggravated, potentially injured again because he's running on it again and it's not 100%? We haven't seen a lot of lateral. So what we've seen so far a lot from Wentz is he's dropping back with the vertical movement and he's looking good and he's planting and everything looks fine. I want to see more of the lateral in the pocket. I want to see him moving side to side. I want to see him actually take off running, honestly. So because we haven't seen that, and at least we're seeing Andrew Luck throw, I'm going to start leaning towards Andrew Luck.
Yeah, but in terms of Wentz, like the training camp reports are that, he looks great. He's on track potentially to start week 1. And I don't think that anyone thought that was going to be a viable option, even 6 weeks ago. That, we probably best case scenario, we see Carson Wentz maybe week 2, probably week 3 to ease him back in. Now there's talk that he might start the opening Thursday game.
Yeah, and there's talk, but to your point, that's part of the reason I'm a little bit why I'm leaning towards Luck is because they don't have to rush Wentz. They have Nick Foles. He won a freaking Super Bowl. If Wentz is just to make sure not ready, they don't want to push things and have him for week 3, as you said, those first 2 games are easy to make up for. They're the easiest games to find replacements for at the beginning of the season. But that being said, if Luck's starting week 1, because the Colts know they can't go to Jacoby Brissett, it's not the same drop-off from, Wentz to Foles as Luck to Brissett. I'll get 16 games out of Luck and not have to draft a second quarterback or not use a roster spot on somebody else for the first 2 weeks.
Colts backfield very quickly. Colts 5th round rookie Jordan Wilkins is, quote, in the mix for the starting running back job. Mack is getting run with the starters right now. Neiman Hines is also getting into that mix as well. It really seems to me like it's not going to be Mack. That is the only thing that I can kind of figure out from around this. If it was going to be Mack, why wasn't he getting more run last year when Frank Gore was still there? Maybe it's just hey, this is a lost season. Let's save the guy's legs for next year. But the fact they went out and drafted 2 running backs to put into this mix leads me to believe that it might be Wilkins.
No, it'll be Mack, but it'll be part of a committee. And the reason he didn't get more touches, to answer your question, is because he kept doing the same issue he had in college. Marlon Mack's biggest problem is he tries to make every play a big one. He doesn't understand. Just take what's given. Not every play is going for 10, 20, 30 yards. Not every play is even going for 5. Sometimes just getting back to the line of scrimmage is an accomplishment because the offensive line got blown up. The defense got your play. They knew it was coming. Whatever it may be, sometimes that happens and you have to take that. Marlon Mack doesn't understand that and he tries to turn every play into more, often losing yardage in doing so. So to go back to that last point, sometimes a 0-yard gain, get back to the line of scrimmage, is better than losing 3 yards because you tried to bounce it outside again. That's the issue with Mack. That's why they're not thrilled with him. But Jordan Wilkins is the best all-around running back. Nyheim Hines is the best pass catcher of this trio. Marlon Mack is the most elusive if he could just figure out the balance between being elusive and not trying to overdo it every single play. So I think we're headed towards a true committee. I'm just going to take whoever's the cheapest. And honestly, so far, I've pretty much avoided this backfield altogether.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Wilkins for me in terms of if I'm going to take anyone. He's a very worthy late-round flyer if he can get a grasp on this job. If Mack comes out and falters immediately, Wilkins comes in and shows some life. It could be Wilkins' job from that point on, and that could happen very, very early in the season.
Right, but see, the early draft so far with experts, I hate that term, or even the high stakes, the seasoned player, people are taking Wilkins, up near the 9th, 10th round because
that's not where he's going to go, though.
No, in your home league, that's not where he's going to go.
That's what we're talking about. We're not talking. Experts aren't watching this to listen to me. Put it that way.
Some of your listeners are seasoned listeners.
I'm not saying that they're not, but I mean, if people are coming to me for this sort of advice, I mean, this is very casual stuff. When they're reading you and listening to you, yeah, that's advanced level things here. But I'm just talking about when I'm doing the draft with my friends. Wilkins is not going in the 9th round.
All right, then in that case, I'm full thumbs up on Wilkins.
Yeah, he's someone you can grab in probably the 2nd to last round. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. No big deal. But out of all the potential guys that are still going late in drafts at running back, like when I say sleeper, from if you want to get into the DK Bucks draw, give the episode a like, leave your DraftKings handle and your favorite running back sleeper. Like, to me, Wilkins would qualify as a sleeper in that regard, just because like 5 guys are talking him up and reaching on him in drafts. I mean, that's not going to have a trickle down effect to people's everyday leagues, unless the Colts come out and say, you know what, Jordan Wilkins, he's our starter and he's going to get 25 touches a game.
I can't disagree with you there. In that case, he is a sleeper, although the sleepers don't really exist anymore, but I'll call him the best underrated running back as of right now.
All right, let's talk about here's a guy. I'm doing my John Gruden now. Anthony Miller. He started out as a legitimate sleeper at wide receiver, and the helium is just coming with him throughout the course of this season, like this preseason, because it's just hype. And his ADP has actually started to move up. Now, I guess my question is, it's not anything against Anthony Miller. I think that he could be a very viable wide receiver in this Bears offense. All the reports are glowing. People aren't necessarily sold on Allen Robinson. I think Allen Robinson's going to be fine. But when you start to look at this backfield and this entire offense, yes, Nagy is there. Trubisky should be better. Everyone's projecting a lot onto the Bears and taking a giant leap forward. It's like they're Mao. And I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case, that all of a sudden, hey, just because it's a rookie quarterback who was taken 2nd overall, they get a new coach in, it's just going to be the Jared Goff Rams situation all over again. And even if it is, how viable can Miller really be? Because on the actual target share depth chart, Robinson's probably going to out-target him. Trey Burton's probably going to out-target him. Do you really want what could potentially be the 3rd option in the Bears receiving game? Hell, Tariq Cohen could end up with more targets than Miller. Miller's will be better and with a far higher ADOT, but like, what's the pecking order here? Like, how viable can he really be?
I think he has viability as your wide receiver. So during the actual draft, I called him a potential wide receiver 4 or 5 on the right team as an NFL number 2 for his team that he plays for. That's exactly what happened. The landing spot is terrific for him. Like, enough. We're done with Kevin White. We know that. Taylor Gabriel, he's a slot guy. We know that he's not going to be better than Anthony Miller for what Anthony Miller brings all around. Anthony Miller's still a rookie. He still has his own issues. He still body catches at times, which leads to drops. He still doesn't have the best route work. He got undercut in college, leading to interceptions for the other team a couple times. So you look at that, but the skill set's there. And the skill set is definitively better than anybody else not named Allen Robinson at the wide receiver position. Well, Kevin White still probably has more talent, but again, he's done for at this point. So you look at that, he should step in as the number 2. To your point, and I actually wrote a column calling Mitchell Trubisky the next Jared Goff way back in February. All that being said, you still have a pecking order like you just pointed out. Allen Robinson is definitively number 1. Trey Burton, they bring him in, could be number 2 ahead of Anthony Miller, and it wouldn't surprise me. You combine, even if it's not Tariq Cohen on his own, you combine Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard at the backfield. Even if it's not Cohen by himself, that will combine to have more targets than Anthony Miller. So now you settle in and you say, okay, what's he likely to get? 600 to 700 yards, 5 touchdowns is probably a pretty daggone good season for the landing spot, the situation, the offense with Trubisky. Now, what is that starter-wise? And that's a 4 or 5. That's somebody you're going to use during bye weeks in the right matchups, but don't go crazy thinking he's going to be in your lineup every single week. To go back to the draft real quick, Pat, I said there wasn't going to be a single rookie wide receiver that was going to have consistent startability this year because there wasn't one there.
The only one I can really think of that you could potentially start week to week, and this all depends on how the depth chart shakes out, is going to be Michael Gallup.
Yeah, that's potential. I think Michael Gallup is going to become that. I have concerns from the day one because of everybody in this group for the tier that I had. It was Anthony Miller, Gallup, Deion Kane, Deshaun Hampton, the list that I gave you before. He was the most raw. He's got great talent, but he is really raw. Now, if something happens in practice and training camp and preseason and he starts to catch on quickly, it wouldn't surprise me, but I think it's going to be more of a second half impact for Gallup.
Potentially. I mean, if he's starting from day one, that just could be 8 targets a week for him. If that's the case, he is potential.
No, Allen Hurns.
I like Allen. I think Allen Hurns is probably the favorite in Dallas. to end up garnering the majority of the market share, at least the high end, the plurality of
well,
the
yeah,
targets.
did you see what they're doing with him?
Are they moving him into the slot and bumping Cole Beasley out wide?
That's exactly what they're doing.
Allen Hurns has been a lot better from the slot than on the outside.
No. There's no question about that. But yeah, let's take the 5'9", $180 dude and throw him outside.
It's strange, but this is why Michael Gallup could end up starting.
It is. I could see. It depends on whether or not this team is still dead set on trying to make Terrence Williams a thing.
Isn't Terrence Williams has to be suspended at some point, doesn't he? Didn't he get caught with a DUI, passed out in his car after crashing it?
We're still waiting on the Martavis Bryant situation, so who knows?
Yeah, I guess so. All right, next story. Hugh Jackson reiterated on Monday that Tyrod Taylor is locked in as the Browns starting quarterback, and we still don't know what's going on with Josh Gordon. Do you have any qualms about Josh Gordon? Have you moved him in your rankings at all? Moved anyone else up? Because it feels like he's going to be fine for week one.
It feels that way, and I saw a report over the weekend that said with this whole he's doing things to keep himself right, part of it was actually the hard knocks, is that he didn't want to be in that situation and
Smart.
on TV. And so, again, it's all speculation. I don't think anybody outside of Josh Gordon and his confidants know exactly what's going on. As of right now, though, I haven't moved him in my rankings. If he's on the board, obviously, I know the upside is greater than Allen Robinson and, Demaryius Thomas, the guys I named before. Emmanuel Sanders on the same team. Emmanuel Sanders has a much better floor than Josh Gordon does, but Josh Gordon's got the much better ceiling. Whether or not you want to invest that in your draft, I understand the risk there. If you want to take Josh Gordon as your wide receiver 3 because of the potential, I have no problem doing it. You just have to know that I wouldn't want a volatile wide receiver 1 or 2. And that's the understanding that you have to have, because let's talk about it. Even if he's out there for week 1, Pat, what if he has this kind of issue and he needs to take time and get his head straight from week 6 to 8?
It's not even that concerns me so much. It's this offense. People are just projecting the Browns to be so much better. Maybe they will be better. I mean, they won 1 game last year, so of course they're going to be better. But when you put Tyrod back there, and this defense actually looks, people are now comparing it to, hey, everyone slept on Jacksonville's defense last year. The Browns could be the same way. I don't think they're necessarily as good, but they could be. The best unit on this team is probably the defense, not the offense. And if Taylor truly is going to start, I don't think he's going to drop back and throw the ball 45 times a game. So you're banking on Tyrod to be super efficient. You're banking on Gordon to be super efficient to maximize the opportunities that he gets. So in my rankings, I still have him on tier 4, but I still have him behind Juju, Demaryius, Amari Cooper, Chris Hogan, and Marvin Jones. I'm probably not going to end up with any Josh Gordon, which pains me because he is so highly skilled. But the stuff that you mentioned, yeah, I think that does have to play a little bit of a factor. But I think just looking at this offense as a whole with Tyrod as its starter, that I don't know how big the upside is.
And that's a legitimate concern. And one of the things I talked about, I did a column on the big 4 quarterbacks moving: Tyrod Taylor, Alex Smith, Kirk Cousins, and Case Keenum. And I was talking about Tyrod Taylor and the comparisons before this. And we know that he's not going to throw the ball 550 times a year, maybe even 500. That's just not who Tyrod Taylor is. Even if he starts all 16 games, which, to go back to the very beginning part of this conversation, is not going to surprise me if Baker Mayfield is the starter at some point. I don't think it's week 1 unless he really impresses, which he's been doing so far, because my entire opinion, and I don't know, it's Hugh Jackson, so who the hell knows. But if Baker Mayfield is playing as well as Tyrod Taylor, start the future. You drafted him at number 1. Just go with him. He has more upside. That being said, it's probably Tyrod Taylor to start, and it might depend on how the season goes. If they start 0-3 and then we see Baker. But all that being said, even if it's Tyrod for 16 games, a lot of people out there think there's the narrative that Tyrod Taylor is a check down, safe option.
Which is completely false, by the way.
It is. And the best number is he had a deeper ADOT than Jay Cutler did last year. He throws the ball downfield. And the reason I bring that up for Jay Cutler is because the person I'm most concerned about is actually Jarvis Landry, because Jarvis Landry's entire 4 years, you go look at it, it's a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio of targets to receptions to fantasy production. He averages nearly the same points per target in non-PPR and fantasy and full PPR over the last 4 seasons. So if you drop off 20 targets, 30 targets because Tyrod's going to Josh Gordon, or Tyrod just doesn't give him as many options because he doesn't throw that much, Jarvis Landry takes the biggest step back for me.
Well, I have Jarvis Landry right now in my tier 5 at receiver. That's behind Crabtree, Corey Davis, Golden Tate, Jamison Crowder, Randall Cobb. Like I'm not buying in.
And that's where he should be, but nobody, you and I might be the only two people that have him that low.
Now, I feel like the sentiment on Jarvis Landry did take a dip, but this Gordon news kind of bumped him back up a little bit. Initially, I was more bullish until I started really thinking it through and talking about it, that if I'm not going to have Josh Gordon that high because I think that the volume in this offense might be down, I really should bump down the guy whose entire fantasy life depends on volume. And if it's not going to be 160 targets, he's not going to be on my team.
100%. But as you said, this Josh Gordon news changes everything, because if Josh Gordon doesn't play, well, now Jarvis Landry can shoot back up the list because he'll probably end up with 150 targets.
That's assuming Josh Gordon doesn't play at all, though.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, next news story. USA Today's Lindsey Jones, Lindsey, believes the Broncos running back job is, quote, totally open. Devontae Booker, Royce Freeman, D'Angelo Henderson, and Philip Lindsay all received first-team reps on Sunday. You like Royce Freeman here. I don't think that Booker, although we've seen that Booker, maybe not the most highly skilled guy in the world, continues to receive opportunities. I don't think that you can just X him out of this. He could end up being the day one starter.
It could, but I got real quick, the training camp news part of it. So this whole running with the first team, let's just take that. And this is for everybody listening. Running with the first team, playing with the first team, snaps with the first team, unless you're a quarterback, means Jack Diddley. Because if you're trying to evaluate players, of course you want to see them play against and with the top players. If you're trying to say, is this guy going to make my team? Is there a potential he could do anything for my team? You're going to want to see this. We've seen, go back to last year, read some of the reports of who was playing with the first team, and look, and you'll see people who were cut from the team. You have to try and evaluate the players the best way possible, so you have to do it that way. Now, all this being said, with this situation, Royce Freeman is a beast of a man, and you look at the potential improvements with the Broncos offensive line. They get healthy. They made a trade for Veldhaer. The fact is they started like 4 different guards and 3 different tackles on this offensive line last year. It was as rough shape as the Bengals and the Giants at one point. Royce Freeman is also, like I said, he's a beast, and he will be the first and second down. Now, is he going to get involved in the third down? Is he going to be on passing plays? That's the bigger question. And that's where I think Booker still keeps his role. I don't think he's going to be the lead, but I think they perform a nice complement to each other. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we go down like a Derrick Henry, Dion Lewis role with these two.
Do you have any read on the Derrick Lewis? I mean, Derrick Lewis would actually just be the guy I would want to draft if I get the stats for the both of them. But I mean, that picture came out, which people are really don't understand how angles work. Like, yeah, of course, Derrick Henry is bigger than Dion Lewis. He's also standing way closer to the camera and on the side of the camera, making him look approximately twice the size of Dion Lewis. Derrick Henry, not that big, and no, Dion Lewis is not a little person. He's 5'8". Derrick Henry's what, 6'2"?
Yeah, so that's like the Michael Thomas picture that came out like 2 weeks before that with the angles and the shadowing from the sun, and then all of a sudden it looked like Michael Thomas had muscles on top of his muscles. Like, yeah, as you said, people need to understand like placement and shadowing. Like, you can make things look bigger or smaller in camera. So this is what I've gone from the beginning is I never bought into the Derrick Henry excitement before they signed Dion Lewis way back during the draft time when people were doing way early drafts and doing the MFL 10s and stuff like that, because I thought they would add somebody. Because my problem with Derrick Henry is, yes, he is explosive for somebody his size. It's actually scary to see how explosive he is. He still has the same issues that Brandon Jacobs had. And no, I'm not saying he's as bad as Brandon Jacobs, but when you're that tall and your legs are that long and you run that upright at times, it's easier for defenders to trip you up. Go back and look at his college game. Go back and look at last season. He can get tripped up before he gets to the line of scrimmage. And if you get him before he gets to the line of scrimmage, all that mass doesn't have the momentum to break through those tackles, and he ends up going for no yards or a loss. So I think Dion Lewis is the perfect complement to him. I wouldn't be surprised if Derrick Henry outsnaps him, and Dion Lewis has better fantasy production, but they both end up very close at the end of the year.
Yeah, I have them both in like the mid-20s as it pertains to PPR scoring. I like Lewis a little bit more, and that's great news for me because Lewis is going slightly after Derrick Henry is. I'm banking more on floor than potential upside because I think that Henry probably still monopolizes a lot of the work around the goal line. But if that somehow flips, then Dion Lewis is very attractive, especially PPR fantasy running back that's falling through the cracks a little bit because people are so concerned about the situation. But if you can get him in like the 5th round, I have no problems doing that. It's not necessarily how I'm building a lot of my teams, but I can see myself getting into that situation with Dion Lewis far more than I would than spending a round up and taking Derrick Henry instead.
Oh, absolutely. And real quick to that is like if either one of them gets hurt. So I know a lot of people are, well, Dion Lewis has had injury problems. What if he gets hurt? Derrick Henry is going to go top 10 running back. They drafted Akrum Wadley, who is actually very similar to Nyheim Hines, who would be the pass-catching option. Probably won't touch the ball as much as Dion Lewis. But before all those people are out there saying, I have no problem drafting Derrick Henry in the 3rd round just because look at that potential if the backfield is his. He's not going to be a 25. He's not going to be David Johnson getting the ball 25-plus times every single game.
Okay, so the other Titans story right now is that Taywan Taylor is running with the first-team offense at Titans camp. Like you mentioned, that could mean anything. He took 61% of his snaps from the slot last year, and Rashard Matthews is injured, but no one knows what the injury is. So is Taylor potentially a late-round flyer that you would be investing in?
Yes. And this is one of those situations where it is a little bit different. First team offense, if you went down to the hierarchy, you would just say, look at quarterbacks and then look at tight ends and then wide receivers would be ahead of running backs. It means a little bit more. And a situation like this where we have an injury, that means something. And, we're going to be watching to see, is it Taylor? Is it somebody else? Right now, it's a lot of Taylor. And if it's not just mixed in there, because everybody sees first team snaps, but if he's getting the majority of them, that's where you start to be smart enough to digest and understand the difference in what is a first team snap and what's the usage of being on the first team in training camp. And Taywan Taylor has been used a heavy amount so far. And I think that if you look at the opportunity here, Rashard Matthews is more concerning to me than another situation like Alshon Jeffrey. So both of them ended up on the PUP. Alshon Jeffrey, this was the plan all along, is he's on his path and the timeline that they expected for him to get healthy, likely starting on the PUP with the ability to come back and get back into training camp later for the preseason. The difference with Rashard Matthews is his is a setback, and that's why I'm more concerned for his situation. That's why I'm definitely investing in Taywan Taylor late in drafts. And you want to talk about a true sleeper as you're talking about, he is one as of right now. Okay,
so next story. The Bills rookie Josh Allen has been the best quarterback at camp so far. Do you believe that? Because it's been reported that he has both made the best throws and by far the worst throws.
Well, so first of all, you trade up, you take a quarterback that high, he better be. And especially the second part is he better be when your competition is A.J. McCarron and Nathan Peterman. I mean, if you're not the best quarterback, I already don't think that Josh Allen is going to be much of anything in the NFL. But God forbid if he couldn't have beaten both of those guys out or looked better than them. But to your point about the report, making the best throws and the worst throws, Josh Allen is. I think I said it to you. I know I've said it so many times. It's kind of fun at this point. But I kept saying my draft profiles, he can – people always talk about fitting it into a tight window. I said he can fit into a peephole, but he can't hit the damn door. That's Josh Allen's problem. As you just said, that's what we're seeing. He's making those pinhole precision throws, and then all of a sudden he's throwing it 5 yards past where the wide receiver is, going the opposite direction, and it's either an interception or a wild misthrow. So Josh Allen, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not under center week 1.
Kenneth Dixon injured his knee, and that leaves all the room in the world for Alex Collins. And Alex Collins is another guy that's getting more and more buzz as the preseason moves along because it seems like his role is going to be established. Do you think that Collins will end up garnering, let's say, a 75% share of the snaps in Baltimore?
I don't think so, because you still have Javorius Allen, Buck Allen for everybody out there that's going to, if it's not Kenneth Dixon, it's Buck Allen. They're going to be involved in the passing game. Alex Collins just isn't that adept. I'm still not that sold on Alex Collins' talent. I know everybody's going to start throwing stats, but this is one of those ones where
nerds, don't throw your stats at Jake.
I do it enough myself. But as I always say, is it's 50% film, it's 50% analytics. You can't have one without the other, or you're just selling yourself short. The analytics tell you Alex Collins was terrific. You watch Alex Collins and you say, I don't know what's really there that I get excited about. He looks good, but he doesn't look amazing. Like, he's one of those cases where I could potentially be 100% wrong on him this year. I just don't see where the numbers and his ability sync together from what I've seen. From
watching Collins, the one thing that I'll say is it's that second level acceleration that he seems to have. Like you mentioned with Marlon Mack, he doesn't take what's given to him. It seems like Collins does. Right. That he's going to wait, and when he gets going, he's gone. He has excellent footwork. That's what I like about Alex Collins. Plus the fact that you mentioned all these offensive lines that were all beat up. Baltimore was in that mix too, and now they're all healthy again.
Right. And so that's, you're 100% right. That's a really good point as well. And that's why I'm okay with him in the third round, especially in a non-PPR. Not so much in a PPR. I'd probably prefer him in the fourth. He doesn't seem to be falling that far because of the volume. Because to go back to the question is 75%. I don't see that. Well, let's talk about that real quick. First of all, the only person that even got over 80 last year
was Le'Veon.
Yeah, and there was only 3 or 4 in the 70% range. So it's very hard for a running back to get that.
But, I understand that's very hard, but I think that if we're going to try to project anyone to jump into that tier, he seems to be in one of the best situations to do so.
If Kenneth Dixon's going to continue to deal with injuries like Kevin White is at this point of his career and he can't ever stay on the field, then yes. If Kenneth Dixon's healthy because he's definitively better than Buck Allen and because he's a very elusive, great pass catcher and would be a very nice compliment to Alex Collins, if you told me this, Kenneth Dixon's playing 16 games, I'd say Alex Collins probably checks in around 60%.
Okay. Next one, Elijah McGuire broke his foot. He's going to be out 3 to 6 weeks. So he'll probably miss week 1, potentially week 2. We'll see how that goes. Tough for a running back to come, or at least return from a foot injury at 100% right away. So that leaves Isaiah Crowell. That leaves Bilal Powell, along with McGuire back there. Week 1, week 2. Do you think that Crowell gets the bump, or do you think Powell gets the bump? Because if you're not convinced that the Jets are going to be any good, and I believe they are not favored week 1 against the Lions, that it could be more passing situations, which would lead me to believe that it's Bilal Powell that you could potentially use right out of the gate. I don't know how good he's going to be long-term, but does this backfield interest you at all, I guess, is the question I'm asking you.
Face it, Happy, you're not any good. That's what you just made me think of. Yes, it actually bumps Bilal Powell because Elijah McGuire is very similar to Tariq Cohen, and that was going to be the issue for Bilal Powell because Isaiah Crowell was brought in to be the lead. He can pass catch himself. Bilal Powell is better than Isaiah Crowell pass catching. But how many opportunities has Bilal Powell had now? That we keep giving him opportunities in fantasy. The team keeps giving him opportunities. Elijah McGuire is going to start putting pressure on him, if not stealing half of the passing down work. So by his being out, this boosts Bilal Powell. And honestly, we might find Thomas Rawls making the roster now because Elijah McGuire's out. Not that you want to be interested in Thomas Rawls. I'm just saying now he might still be on a roster somewhere.
If the Jets are good, could Crowell be a viable fantasy option?
I stopped listening after good because the answer is no.
Okay.
The Jets aren't going to be good. The Jets, the Bills, and the Dolphins are going to be 3 of the top 6 teams in the draft next year.
Oh, good news for the Patriots then.
And that's why you have to like the Patriots if you're betting, man, and looking at the over-unders and saying, you know what, 12 wins should be easy yet again.
Well, the other thing with that, too, is that the Jets, Dolphins, or Bills, if you have a preference between one of those three, the over on their win total would make a lot of sense because let's say the Jets aren't good, but they beat the Dolphins and Bills twice, there's 4 wins right there.
Yeah, but I think aren't they all at 6.5?
Yeah, they're right around. I'm
taking the under at all.
Yeah, but the early money is just people are pounding the Bills under.
Oh, so they're pulling it down because didn't it start at 7?
I think it's down to 5.5 now.
Oh, okay. Well, if I'm getting 6, at least there's 6.5 on all of them because 6, obviously you only lose the bet if they win 7. I would hit a trifecta. I would do a 3 on all 3 of them.
A 3 win total parlay on all the under of the other teams in the AFC East?
100%.
All right. Last bit of news that we can really dive into. Chad Williams opened 11-on-11 drills as the Cardinals wide receiver number 3 on Sunday, along with Larry Fitzgerald, Bryce Butler, who, for whatever reason we really haven't talked about yet, no Christian Kirk.
Oh, so I didn't know that was the end of the question. You don't usually end one like that. So Christian Kirk, the problem is they are using him right behind Larry Fitzgerald, which is great for his development. And I do think that similar to Jarvis Landry, he can play outside more than people assume. And go back to Jarvis Landry real quick, was only in the slot about 60 to 65% of the time last year. So he spent the rest of the time outside. Christian Kirk can do the same thing. Larry Fitzgerald isn't going to run 100% of his snaps in the slot, but that's a great person to learn from. And if you're looking for the replacement of Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk is that. And maybe they don't want to potentially force him outside and force him in that snap count more often than in the slot and kind of stunt his development. So I understand it. I still, pure talent-wise, would take Kirk over Butler and Chad Williams. But if you're looking at the situation right now, I don't know that I'm really excited about any of them because the person I like the most after Fitzgerald and David Johnson in the passing game is pickle Ricky Seals-Jones, man. That's my guy. That's my sleeper tight end of the year because you're talking about a big body and look at the run at the end of last season for somebody who's either a quarterback that loves his tight ends and Sam Bradford or a rookie quarterback that should use his tight end quite a bit for that safety valve. I think that you're looking at that big body of Ricky Seals-Jones, and he is the number 2 option in the red zone.
I think that Bryce Butler might just be a nice DraftKings play as a GPP
Yeah, he's the
flyer.
new John Brown.
Yeah, he's the GPP flyer that you just throw in every week because you know that 3 times this year he's going to have a giant game.
Yep, he's the not named John Brown, other John Brown.
Well, you get rid of John Brown, you get rid of fake John Brown, and boom, there's a lot of opportunity for people.
There you go. Hey, I'm with you for that one.
Headlines. I want to know very quickly whether you're interested or not interested in any of these headlines, all right?
Okay.
First one, Alex Smith is comfortable with Jamison Crowder.
Interested, but I was interested beforehand because Alex Smith is very capable of throwing to his slot receiver.
So we like Jamison Crowder as a potential low-end number 2 PPR receiver?
Potentially. I just took him in the 6th round, yes.
So that's around like wide receiver 3 range.
It's high wide receiver 3 where he could sneak into that wide receiver 2.
Okay. Next one. ESPN's Jamison Hensley writes, Michael Crabtree has, quote, been a popular target during red zone drills so far this camp. I like Michael Crabtree, by the way. I don't understand why no one is talking about him.
I am. I like him. I'm with you. If you're looking at this offense and the let's say Joe Flacco somehow starts all 16 games and they don't go to Lamar Jackson. He throws a million times. The problem is he only throws 5 yards per attempt. And I know I'm joking with that, but it should be a ton going. Look at this core. It should be Crabtree and then everybody else. I'm actually excited for John Brown too, because he's finally healthy and out of that altitude in Arizona, which should help his condition. But no kidding on Crabtree. I'm with you. I don't understand why more people weren't excited about this move to the Ravens.
A, quote, longtime Ravens observer told NBC's Peter King that Joe Flacco was having, quote, far and away the best training camp of his career.
No, okay, that one does not interest me. Lamar Jackson is going to be under center at some point.
Okay. Ravens wide receiver John Brown continued to, quote, stand out among teams' receivers last Saturday.
There you go. Look, it's unfortunate he's got the sickle cell condition. We know that from the safety that played for the Giants and the Steelers that his name's Grant. That was Ryan Grant was playing, and he had the same thing, and he actually didn't play when they went to Denver. So Arizona's pretty high too. It's not quite as high as Denver, but he's playing there and half the season's there and he's practicing there. And we know injuries with this condition can linger more. He's gone now. He's over here by me on the East Coast, which is sea level. So granted, he could still get banged up more than other people given his condition, but I'm all in on this. So look at John Brown has a 1,000-yard season with multiple, I think it was 7 or 8 touchdowns under his belt with the Cardinals.
And I think that between Crabtree and John Brown, they can both take advantage of what Joe Flacco can potentially do well, especially since he's having the best training camp of his career. John Brown can just run flies down the field, and you can just throw it underneath him. He can go run underneath of it.
Yeah, 100%. I'm trying to find what that season was for John Brown as I threw that out. It was 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. Boom, I'm awesome.
Patriots Jordan Matthews is on the roster bubble.
Mildly interested only because it's the Patriots' first 4 weeks and maybe Philip Dorsett in a super deep league or as a DFS play, but I was hopeful for Jordan Matthews for the first 4 weeks, but it wasn't like I was going crazy investing in him.
Did you know that Tim Andercuss bet me that Philip Dorsett will outscore Julian Edelman this season?
No, and even if they cut Jordan Matthews, that's still insane.
Is there a chance that by the time Edelman returns from his suspension, that he is tied in fantasy points with Philip Dorsett?
That's very possible.
Brandon LaFell is a potential casualty right now in Cincinnati. Do you believe that? Because what are they going to do? Go with John Ross?
Well, they should go with John Ross if he's healthy. There's no question about that as the number 2. But if they cut Brandon LaFell, look at the depth chart. They need Brandon LaFell. I don't understand that. No, so I think Brandon LaFell's on this roster. He might not be the number 2 anymore.
Well, I mean, Brandon LaFell does sex well, and you need to translate that down to your younger players. When you got a veteran who sex well, you need to have the rookies who also sex well. The other guys on that depth chart right now, Josh Malone, Cody Core, Alex Erickson. Oh, Alex Erickson! I remember him from, points last year.
Yeah. Exactly. That's my point.
He
You're
was,
really going to cut Brandon LaFell for those three?
Alex Erickson had like a Dane Sossenbacher type run for like 3 weeks last year.
Sossenbacher. You got to clap for that.
And listen, if his name wasn't so awesome, no one would remember who that is. But hey, those are the benefits of having a cool name.
It is. That's like Brandon LaFell Sexwell. We'll probably remember him forever.
True. Miami Herald reports Devontae Parker has been, quote, largely ineffective through the first 5 days of camp. The buzz right now is all about Kenny Stills, how good Kenny Stills is and how you should take him over Devontae Parker. Is this just, lowering expectations for Parker? Is this finally the year that people get off Parker? And is it finally a mistake not to draft him?
Hopefully, I don't understand why people keep doing the Devontae Parker thing every single year. You could play the cliche. You know what the definition of insanity is. I mean, people are banging their heads against the wall. I like Devontae Parker's talent as much as the next guy, but I was off him last year, and I wasn't getting back on him this season, despite the fact Jarvis Landry was gone, because people keep doing with him the same thing they do with Amari Cooper. They make all the excuses, and instead of taking him at a value where there is some potential return and you are mitigating the risk, they go right back and draft Amari Cooper as a fringe wide receiver 1. They go right back and draft Devontae Parker as a top 20, 25 wide receiver. And it's the same mistake people make every single year. So this doesn't surprise me at all. I joked about it 2 months ago. I said, I'll take the better Dolphins wide receiver 3 or 4 rounds later in Kenny Stills.
It's Mike Gesicki, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Dolphins tight end coach Shane Day says that he is, quote, exactly as advertised as a receiver. And then his one-handed catch went viral. Shades of Jermichael Finley catching 2 balls at one time, everyone overdrafting him and him having like the worst season of all time. Is there any reason to buy into this whatsoever with a rookie tight end in an offense that already has 4 receivers?
So not unless somebody gets hurt. And we'll talk about the Terrell Pryor one-handed catch from last year. That we saw that for how many weeks? The thing with Gesicki is somebody going to get hurt? And because I liken him to Evan Ingram. The reason Evan Ingram had an amazing season last year is because it was him.
It was Jimmy, but even Sterling Shepard got hurt. At points, it was just Evan Ingram.
And Roger Lewis was on the field with him, and Khalif Raymond and Travis Rudolph. So you look at that situation. Exactly. That's the point here, is that there needs to be an injury for Gesicki to have legitimate fantasy value. And I mean legitimate is where you could even trust to put him in your lineup. Is there probably a couple tight end 1 weeks coming for him this year? Absolutely. Probably I'd say 4 or 5 games. Trying to predict when those are going to happen if Parker actually stays on this team or stays in the starting lineup. Kenny Stills is out there. Albert Wilson, Danny Amendola. If they're all out there, you just, as you said, you can't find consistent value there.
Yeah, this just popped up on my screen. Jordan Matthews, as reported by Ian Rappaport, has a significant hamstring injury, and that's why the Patriots might be signing Eric Decker. Fun!
Oh, my God. Are we really good? So please don't do the Eric Decker thing if you're in a league.
I'm not. I'm just going to draft. You. I'm just going to draft Rex Burkhead and Chris Hogan. Those are the guys that you want on the Patriots.
And Philip Dorsett?
Yeah, of course. I mean, fantasy breakout sensation Philip Dorsett. I think
you can hedge your bet with it.
Well, this doesn't even seem. I mean, if they're thinking about bringing in Eric Decker, I feel like that does not bode well for the future prospects of Philip Dorsett.
Unless I don't know, it probably doesn't.
No.
I was going to try,
we would hear more reports like, hey, Philip Dorsett looking good. We don't even hear those.
No, we just hear Philip Dorsett getting some use out of the slot.
Yeah, that's going to be Rex Burkhead, so I wouldn't worry about that until Edelman comes back. According to, this is all 49ers headlines now because there's a lot of them, and they all kind of contradict themselves. According to Grant Cohen of the Press Democrat, Matt Breida has been a standout through the first 3 days of training camp. You buying it?
Yeah, I'm buying it for Matt Breida, and I'm also more so, it's not that I'm changing anything with that news. I just goes to the point again that they are going to use Matt Breida more than people want to believe. Stop drafting Jerick McKinnon as a fringe running back 1, because just look at how the Vikings used him. Great game, same amount of touches. Great game, same amount of touches. They actually lost a couple games. He didn't look so great. He bounces back with a huge game, same amount of touches. They start using Latavius Murray even more down the. Jerick McKinnon is Lamar Miller in the fact that he needs to stay 15, 18 touches a game. Matt Breida is going to be in the mix. And if Jerick McKinnon gets hurt, Matt Breida could have value. He should be somebody people are drafting in like the 13th round.
Well, here's the thing, though, because the 49ers.com says Jimmy and Jerick are, quote, on point.
I know, and we see the same report. And Jimmy's connecting with him on the quick passes out, which is different from last year with Jimmy Garoppolo didn't throw to the back. That's actually what hurt Carlos Hyde down the stretch. It's a good news. Jerick McKinnon is super talented. I like the guy. I'm just trying to get people to just temper your expectations. He's not going to turn into a top 5-6 running back.
Okay, so Jerick McKinnon right now I have at the very bottom of my tier 3 at running back. That's behind Melvin Gordon, Kareem Hunt, Dalvin Cook, Devonta Freeman, Leonard Fournette. Then it's Jerick McKinnon. I have him ahead of guys like Kenyon Drake, Christian McCaffrey, LaShawn McCoy, and Alex Collins. Is Jerick in the right spot in that ranking list, or should he be higher or lower?
No, that's the right spot. It's the draft capital people are putting him in because I have him 14th in PPR. Right there with you, right? Sandwich between Devonta Freeman and Joe Mixon. That's where he needs to be. People are in PPR drafting him in front of Devonta Freeman because of the injury concern. Understandable. They're drafting in front of LaShawn McCoy and Leonard Fournette even because Leonard Fournette only runs the ball. Oh, really? The guy caught over 30 passes in 13 games last year. Stop with the LSU nonsense. Just same thing with Darius Geis. To be honest with you, as of right now, as of today, I'm taking Darius Geis over him.
Well, over Jerick? I'm not. Listen, I mean, I'm with you that people are projecting too much onto Fournette and what he can't do in the receiving game. My problem with Geis is they actually have a guy in Washington who's just a better receiver. No matter how good Geis is, Chris Thompson is going to be the guy that they use in passing situations.
Who has multiple injuries to his career.
He's fine. He's fine.
He won't feel 100% until November. Here's the thing with Darius Geis. Chris Thompson can do his thing. He can be Chris Thompson. Darius Geis, even with Chris Thompson still doing his thing, can have Leonard Fournette's season last year, even if it takes him 16 games. And that's my point. He can be Leonard Fournette over 16 games with 3 more games to get to Leonard Fournette's numbers last year. But you know what that does? That puts Darius Geis inside the top 10. Do I think he gets there? No. But my point being is he can catch 25 to 30 passes. He can put up those rushing yards. He can score touchdowns on this offense with Chris Thompson still doing his thing.
Well, I guess the whole thing with Jerick is if he hits his ceiling too, and let's just say he ends up playing 70% of the snaps, he could
be dead.
He could be dead, but he could theoretically also be a top 5 fantasy running back too if everything works out in his favor. That's where people are buying into it. I don't think it happens either, but that's the path. If we're talking about range of outcomes. And
I think a lot of people are buying him near that price, and that's the issue. Now you're buying all the risk because, as I said, like, if he gets that many touches, he's going to be like that, what is it, Not Another Teen movie where his body's split in half in the end zone.
49ers second round wide receiver pick Dante Pettis. The Pettis file continues to impress in camp, Jake.
That was one of your weaker ones, but I'll give it to you anyway. That's a Matt Waldman lover right there. She's the Dante Pettis truther. I was not as high as on Dante Pettis as Waldman was. I still like the talent and the opportunity, but where's the go back to the conversation about Gesicki? Really, he's going to pass Pierre Garçon and Marquise Goodwin, who he has all this amazing rapport with Garoppolo so far, and Jerick McKinnon out of the backfield, like. And then you look at the tight end, and everybody loves George Kittle. Where are the targets coming?
Yeah. Redskins have praised second-round running back Darius Geis, your boy, for his work in, quote, the meeting room. So not only is he great on the field, great in the locker room.
No, but I think the reason that got reported is because he had a draft day slide that should not have happened because he's a weird dude.
Yeah, or people just think he's like a moron and can't like understand things that are in front of him. Like I feel like if you're going to be a college running back in a giant program, you can probably figure out how to do film study pretty quickly.
He said some weird things at the combine and during the draft process, and people started thinking he's weird. But the Redskins, right after they drafted him, said the same thing that I was saying, is if you look at it, he doesn't have weed issues. He doesn't have alcohol issues. He's never been suspended. He doesn't have domestic violence issues. He's a great guy. He's just weird. Well, you know who else is weird? Marshawn freaking Lynch, and he was only one of the best running backs in fantasy for years.
Reports out of Saints camp that one of the younger running backs could inherit the role behind Kamara.
Boston Scott.
Right off the side. And it's Boston Scott. It could be Jonathan Williams, who people may remember from his Buffalo days. And Trey Edmonds is the other one. They could beat out Terrence West. And they have Shane Vereen on their roster, which I'm not really sure why. That seems like the low-rent version of having Kamara.
It is a training camp body. It just Vereen was looking for something, and maybe Kamara gets hurt, and that's what he's hoping for. But hopefully not. But all that being said, I think it's Boston Scott. I think that Boston Scott had the most talent to be the number 3 on this team before Mark Ingram's suspension, anything like that. I would, if you're looking to be that person that invests in hopefully a flyer, and I don't think you're doing it in a normal 16-round draft, deeper, best ball and stuff like that, I'm going with Boston Scott.
Okay. The Kansas City Stars' Brooke Pryor believes the Candyman, Charkandrick West, could be cut.
Does that surprise you?
Yeah, it does. He's their receiving back.
No, Kareem Hunt and Spencer Ware are.
I mean, Spencer Ware is not the best pass catcher.
But he's adept enough that he's going to be used enough that you really only need 2 running backs back there. You need more of an assurance going forward. And then you have Sherman, who's actually one of the better full blocks. It doesn't surprise me, honestly.
All right, I guess so. I guess you can use what the hell is his name?
Anthony Thomas.
Anthony Thomas. You could probably use him out of the backfield as a receiving back if you wanted to.
And I think that's might be what they're thinking is.
Do you think this Ware thing puts a dent into the potential upside for Kareem Hunt? Because I think it does.
No.
I think
the only thing that's going to put a dent in the upside and hurt Kareem Hunt is Andy freaking Reid. That's the only.
Yeah, that goes part and parcel with Spencer Ware being the one. Spencer Ware was going to start last year until he got hurt.
Well, and that's understandable. Like, there was a lot of people, myself, Scott Barrett, other people out there included, that were saying Kareem Hunt should be the starter from day one. But sometimes when you have somebody who, Spencer Ware was performing pretty dang on well himself, it's hard to push past that no matter how good you might be. You even put Kamara in that backfield with Spencer Ware if he was healthy. You put anybody back there, Leonard Fournette, if they would have drafted him. Spencer Ware was looking good. There was no definitive reason besides our opinions on talent of why the Chiefs should have given Hunt the opportunity. It just happened to break that way, fortunately for Hunt. So Spencer Ware could be back in the mix, but I think he's definitively the backup in talent to Kareem Hunt. But that doesn't mean anything. Like, even if we had this guy is like, even put it this way, if Andy Reid's playing Madden and Kareem Hunt has a 95 and Spencer Ware has an 80, that's not going to stop Andy Reid from being a knucklehead and putting in the 80 guy for some drives. Okay,
so people keep asking me why I have Jordy Nelson ranked in worst place. He's like the Mark Ingram of receivers at this point. Here's the headline coming out of training camp from John Gruden. Raiders coach John Gruden said Jordy Nelson, quote, can still run. Great news. This is who you cut Michael Crabtree for.
Dude, like a couple things here is I've said this about Jordy Nelson before is the dude fell off a cliff, hit every damn rock on the way down, and then burst into a bowl of flames at the bottom of the ravine.
Yeah, not only that, it's just like when Homer tried to go over the Springfield Gorge. He got brought up, and then he fell back down again.
Exactly. Like, Jordy Nelson is toast. The other side of it, my bold prediction is if the NFL doesn't suspend Martavis Bryant,
which they will.
But I thought they would have by now. But in any case, Martavis Bryant's going to outscore Jordy Nelson if he's not suspended.
Even if he is suspended for 6 games, whatever the hell he's going to get, he still might outscore Jordy Nelson.
And that's the thing. Like, your point is right. Is John Gruden loves everybody. If that's the best compliment you can give somebody,
yeah. You know who's great? There's this guy, Jordy Nelson. He's not in a wheelchair. He's fantastic.
You know what? This would be like if you just fell off and started doing terrible, boring shows and were just monotonous the entire time. That'd be like me going and saying, you know what? Pat Mayo can still speak.
Yeah, great at speaking. Can kind of put together full sentences. Kind of. He's not quite there yet, but he's not just talking gibberish anymore.
Exactly.
All right. Oh, here's one. Ty Montgomery.
Living rooms, bedrooms, diners. We got it. You need it. You'll find it. It's just like a mini mall. Hey.
Flea market has worked as the third down back in Green Bay. We know Aaron Jones suspended the 2 games. Jamal Williams looks like he's going to start. What do you make of this backfield?
I make of it, I wanted the cheapest option, which was Jamal Williams, and that being Ty Montgomery pushed to the side. Ty Montgomery, I still think, was in that 4 to 6 touch per game. I wasn't going to be surprised that they used him a little bit at wide receiver again this year before the suspension. And so now Jamal Williams moves back up, and now I'm taking Aaron Jones. And this is from the Jamal Williams guy.
But the thing is, Williams isn't going all that highly. Like, I still think he's a fine value. If he's going to get, I like Jamal Williams the best, only because he's going to get round 1 to earn the job. And if he does play well, he's not going to lose the job.
Right. But here's the problem. Jamal Williams has 2 scenarios in front of him. He comes out, well, actually, technically 3, if you want to just say it goes back to a timeshare. But the 2 scenarios that would be the most telling is he comes out those first 2 weeks, looks great, pass blocks well, which we already know he will do, and that's why Aaron Rodgers can trust him. And Aaron Jones comes back, and he's got a change of pace role. There's another scenario where they face the Bears and the Vikings the first 2 weeks, which are both good run defense. The Vikings among the best in the league. Jamal Williams comes out, averages 2.8 yards per carry, has 60 yards across 2 games. And Aaron Jones actually comes back into a better situation than he would have had if they were splitting touches to start the year. So that's why I'm still taking the lesser person. I like Jamal Williams. Yes, you are right. He still is going at a value because of his potential. But I like getting Aaron Jones because of that's still a potential too. That wouldn't surprise me if that happens.
All right, finally, Dalvin Cook in his knee injury said he's ahead of schedule in his rehab. I still think that they're going to have kid gloves on with Dalvin Cook. He'll still be the lead back in the Vikings backfield, but they'll want him for later in the year because they're a serious Super Bowl contender that we're going to see a dash of Latavius Murray sprinkled in there.
I could see that early on.
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about, early on.
So, and a lot of people keep asking, well, who's this year's Todd Gurley? Because everybody always, because that happens every year. Everybody, who's the Todd? But all that being said, if you answer the question a different way and say, who's the running back who has the potential to jump into that conversation with Gurley, with Le'Veon Bell, with David Johnson, Ezekiel Elliott, it's Dalvin Cook for me. If they use him consistently throughout this year and give him the volume he can handle because he has the ability to jump into that top 5. Your concern is valid, though, if the first 5 to 6 weeks he doesn't ever get more than 15, 16 carries because, as you said, they want him for the run.
All right, they'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Jake Ciely at All In Kid on Twitter. You got the Flex League draft coming up. Tell everyone about the Flex League.
Yeah, Fantasy League of Experts. It started with David Ganos and Jamie Eisenberg. It's kind of the tout wars for people that do baseball of football. Get it? The biggest thing is just getting everybody together once a year and actually seeing each other face to face and hanging out. But yes, the flex. Oh shoot, where's the bell? Well, this is kind of. Can you see the bell? Barely.
Yeah, we can see the bell.
That's for my home league. The one for the Flex League looks almost exactly like it. Got a white one for this year and the other ones, and then there was a little money involved as well. And we hopefully that you can find us in New York and cross over with us.
Yes, I'm looking. I haven't participated in the league since I drafted a team from a wedding and got my championship belt. However, yes. Fantasy championship belt, kind of for losers. I'm not going to lie to you.
No, they're kind of awesome.
They're not kind of awesome. They're
very awesome.
They reek of desperation.
Would you rather have the ring? Is that would you rather have the little?
I'd rather just get a check written to me for winning.
Well, you get the check anyway, but you also get the awesome belt to carry around.
Listen. If we didn't have the belts and the rings, the check would be more.
No, you need the belt.
Oh, they're donated.
Well, then we get a discount.
All right.
Okay, well, kudos. Big ups to Fantasy Jocks, by the way.
Sure. Not a sponsor of the Pat Mayo Experience. Put it that way.
Sorry.
Free advertising for Fantasy Jocks. We actually did a commercial. They actually
cut that out.
That's fine. They were sponsoring one part of the show like 2 years ago. It was me and Feinberg, and like during the read, like the first line of the read, it's like, hey, ask co-host, like, hey, would you be interested in having a fantasy championship ring for your league? And Feinberg just goes, fuck that. It was one of the best ad spots of all time.
Oh, that's amazing.
Okay. So I saw you were the most accurate ranker from last year. Was that for like total season? Because I feel like you would have been hurt because you don't rank kickers.
No, because they don't include kickers and defenses into the formulation.
Oh, smart.
Because they're smart and they know that kickers should not be involved in fantasy. But also the variance in defenses and kickers and stuff like that. And also because there is so much variance in scoring from league to league on that. But yes, it is quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. I don't get a trophy for that. I got trophies for the other ones. Or wait, oh yeah, over there. But they didn't send me a trophy for that one. I don't know what the hell.
They'll probably just send you a belt.
Touche, Pat.
Anyway, where can everyone find your stuff?
At
Twitter?
All In Kid. I tweet out everything. Just follow me and go. You'll see everything.
All right. I'm Pat Mayo. You can do the same thing. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the PME. The whole draft kit, every show, every article, everything. pinned to the top of my Facebook page, probably the easiest place to locate everything. Or if you go to DraftKingsPlaybook.com, there is a links template at the top of every column that is on demand, free, wherever you can find it. Subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience, audio versions, wherever you can download podcasts, and please give the episode a like. Put your DK handle in the comment section and your favorite running back sleeper of the year, and be in the draw for some potential DraftKings dollars to get yourself ready for week 1, because week 1 pricing is already out. I've already done a show on it. Go check it back last week. Give that episode a like too. It goes a long way. Anyway, I'm Pat Mayo. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!